Aloha and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Got Your Six podcast. This six-question podcast brings together high performers to share their methods, strategies, and ideas, delivered in an informative and, most importantly, actionable way that'll help you lead yourself and those around you from the battlefield to the boardroom. Coming to you every episode, I'm your host, Tony Nash. And into the breach.
Nothing mentioned on this podcast is an endorsement or opinion of the Department of Defense.
I got your six, we got your back. Got your six, we got your back. Got your six, we got your back. I got your six.
Sixers, what an absolute treat we have today. Travis Mills is joining us. And it took me a while to start the podcast because I couldn't stop laughing. So if you're driving or whatever, stay focused on what you're doing, but know that this episode is going to just be packed with, you're going to laugh, you're going to cry. It's going to be the best 30 minutes you've spent all day. Travis, thank you so much for being on the Got Your Six podcast.
Oh, hey, I appreciate it, Big Guns. Big Guns Tony, I've heard rumor, and they weren't wrong, you champion. Thanks for having me.
No, and it's really great to see somebody who does not live life on the sidelines, especially in your second life, right? Never giving up, never quitting, no matter the obstacles or circumstances. It's one thing to say, but in order to do it is a completely different thing.
You know, I just been fortunate. Had a bad day at work, case of the old Mondays, and it's my own fault, because my buddy's like, don't step there. And I was like, why? And he's like, it'll kill you. And I said, no, it won't. And then I bet him $10 that it wouldn't. And I stepped on it, and I won $10. But I ended up losing, my arms and legs because of it. So best Big Mac meal you've ever seen money spent on from that $10 of that bet I won. But no, I appreciate you saying that. I just hadn't had a choice to either get better or don't, and I decided, hey, let's get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And some would say that cost you an arm and a leg, all right, which is kind of, with inflation and everything going on, that sometimes happens with the Big Mac meals, Right.
Might cost me too.
So, that happened back, you started serving in 2006, right? Back in 2012, April 10th. Right, is when
you're nailing it. You're nailing it.
Workplace. I'm trying, going off the dome here, and then I also have a ton of notes to the side, so it's not as cool as it looks. What do you continue to take away from your time in that 6 years of service that you constantly implement every day?
Yeah. So I grew up at the 82nd Airborne Division. I feel like I grew up in Michigan, where I'm from, hometown, everything like that. But realistically, after I got out of my semester and a half of failed college and joined the Army, I was like, this is where I grew up. And you learn so much, right? You learn hard work, dedication. You learn what motivation is. Even if it's fake motivation, you still have it. And you learn that you can't just quit. You can't just say oh, I'm too tired. I don't want to do this. I'm done. Because that's not allowed in the Army. And the best part is it's like, hey, look, we got to keep pressing forward. We got to keep going. And through my years of service, I was able to get promoted to, first it was PFC, and then specialist, and then sergeant, and then staff sergeant. And, I learned what leadership really was, and that no matter how high a rank you go, you work harder, every rank you go up for the guys underneath you than they ever realize. And I slept less, I ate less, and, I did a lot more because it was all about their betterment and their overall livelihoods. And I use that in my businesses every day to try to make sure that everybody that works with me at my foundation, at my other businesses, that they know I'll go just as hard as them, and I will be there, when the lights turn on and when the lights turn off, because I believe in the mission that we have in front of us, as well as I want to make sure that they get to go home to their families and put food on their tables because of the work they do.
Is there someone that with a leader, or they recommended a book? Everybody's like, oh, you're in the Army, so you must read a lot of books. What book are you reading? Where does that come from?
We're not Marines, because Marines can't read. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And we love the Marines that are Sixers. God bless them.
Oh, don't worry, they don't get my jokes. It's no big deal. Right. Someone's gonna explain it to them. No, I'm kidding. I'm jealous of those darn uniforms, Tony. You know what I'm talking about? They look so good. Those uniforms,
especially when they're in bicep season, right? Where they roll the sleeves up. Yeah.
Oh, jerks.
Forearms are the new abs. I learned that a long time ago.
And I'm missing both of them. Thanks for rubbing it in.
See, quicker than I look. So where have you, what greatly influenced that? Was it seeing other people do it, or having to do it yourself? really
Yeah.
being, serving others more than you kind of give yourself?
I had really great leadership that taught me that. Guys that would go the extra mile, and you could tell they were tired and exhausted, and they'd just been through hell with us, and they went the extra mile. So I was led from the front, and I was fortunate to be in units where, as an E2, I was part of a personal security attachment for a colonel, and they were like, "Hey, you're infantry," and I'm like, "I had 4 extra weeks of basic training. I have no idea why you think that's important," but they're like, "Here's $6 million worth of equipment. You're in charge of this truck now." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, no, you're right. At 19, why not? I got this." And then my second deployment, I was a sergeant, but they were like, "Yep, you're gonna be in a staff sergeant spot." I'm like, "Yeah, no, it's great. And then my third deployment, I was E6, youngest in time, youngest in grade, youngest overall out of the E6s, but I was a weapons squad leader. And I think you always want to work the position above, but you always want to make sure that you can do your job. And I had a great leader. My third deployment, I went and saw my platoon sergeant, who's now going to be a sergeant major, and it's Sergeant Hambright, Keith Hambright, great guy. I think he's at the Pentagon now. But I went and saw him, and I kind of broke down a little bit. I said, I don't think I've ever respected anybody more, than you as a leader. And I said, every day I was like, I want to be just like Sergeant Hambright. And I kind of teared up a little bit, and I said, I don't know why I'm getting emotional right now, but I just wanted you to know that because, I worked every day to model him the best I could. And he gave me a great NCOER. He's like, promote automatically, like this guy's ready for, da-da-da-da-da. And I was a great combat leader, and I can say that with pride, not being arrogant, but Sergeant Hambright was one that was awesome. And I had another guy that I deployed with that was my boss at first, and he sucked. Like he was, you see good leadership and you see terrible leadership. And the guy that sucked so bad, I almost got out of the Army. I was almost like, hey man, I'm not re-enlisting. Like no way would I ever do this for the rest of my life because people like you are in. And then, he lost his job to me. And the day I got my staff sergeant rank, like everybody comes up, I punch people. You see enlisted guys doing that. I don't think officers do that, but the enlisted guys do that.
No, they do. That. Yeah, it's universal.
Yeah. Like I hated that. I absolutely hated that. And this guy came up to punch me in the chest, and I said, hey, just so you understand, now that I'm a staff sergeant, I said, I will literally break every bone in your face if you touch me. Like, you put your fist in my chest. I said, I don't care how light or hard it is. I said, I'm going to break every bone in your face because I hate you. And you're a terrible leader, and you're one of the worst ever. And I wasn't able to say that until I got my rank the same as his. And I don't regret it. I don't regret it because he taught me, like, what not to do. I guess you can learn just as much from terrible leadership as you can from great leadership. And, it's funny to talk about those two guys I'll never forget in my whole entire life, but for different reasons completely.
Well, I think that kind of goes to, your last real job in the Army, right, is being that weapons squad leader, knowing your left and right limit, right, knowing what good leadership looks like on one side and what terrible leadership looks on the other, and being able to kind of have that, spectrum and working inside of it and knowing where you are in time and space.
Yeah, and I know you're an officer, and I respected my officers, and I've actually became really, really great friends with a lot of the officers that I deployed with. And it's kind of funny, like the guy that my third deployment officer, who I just saw him in Cleveland a couple weeks ago, a great guy, wonderful. His first day there, he was reading these vignettes, and he asked, like, you see 3 Afghans with AK-47s, and they see you, and they run off into a field. What do you do? And I was like, well, you shoot them. And he goes, no, you don't do that, Sergeant Mills. It says right here. I'm like, whoa, buddy. You shoot them, And he kind of, went back at me, and we didn't hit it off right away because I ended up asking how many, hey, well, how many times you been to combat, And then 2 weeks into deployment, he goes, hey, Sergeant Mills. I said, yep. He goes, you shoot them. I said, that's right, sir. That's right. But that's because we were surrounded by Taliban. But we became so close and great friends that I don't respect anybody more than, like I said, my platoon sergeant and Lieutenant Lewis, as well as my second deployment, my Lieutenant Craig Baer, who was a West Point grad. I got a pretty cool project I'm working on, my own apparel line that he's probably going to come and head for me, and I can't wait. So knowing your left and right limits, and my thing was on my second deployment, I grew up a lot. My third deployment, my first sergeant knew exactly who I was, but since I came up in the Army different than a lot of infantry guys, I wasn't that jerk. I wasn't like hard and mean. I was always smiling and laughing and joking. And the first firefight we ever got in a country, I controlled the rights of fire. I yelled at third squad to do the right thing, kicked 2 team leaders that were doing the wrong thing, like fixed them, went down and got a guy out of a dry riverbed by myself, threw my rifle to my first sergeant. And it was just like what you do in combat. And my first sergeant knew me from combat. and what I could do over there. That's why, I was the youngest E6, but still the squad leader, the senior guy in the squad or the platoon. And those two team leaders that I yelled at, who came from an infantry unit before, were like, Sergeant Mills, we gotta be honest. We didn't know why you got to be, like, how you got to be a staff sergeant. One, because you're always smiling and joking and having a good time. And then two, we didn't realize, how, like, well, it was first how I got promoted, but then how I was a squad leader because I was younger. And they said, well, we'll fight to hell and back. And I was like, to be honest, guys, like, First Sergeant Parrish knows who I am. And you have that switch, right? I mean, you probably know about it, Tony, like, where you can be a normal, everyday person. You can treat everybody with respect, but then if you're in combat, that switch goes 0 to 100. And you're like, well, your eyes glaze over, you set in, and, it's just like you watch that movie 12 Soldiers, or 12
Horses?
Strong. Yeah, 12.
Oh, yeah.
12
Yeah.
Strong, I think?
12 Strong. 12 Strong.
Like, killer eyes. And it's like, I don't think I have killer eyes by any means, but it's like, the guys that have been there and seen it, they can turn it on and off, and you just got to go.
Right. And like you said, as you get into those different roles and knowing that job, you start to understand different things, by following other people that, right, wrong, and different. And you start to really understand why things are in the places that they are. Now that you have, a breadth of experience in the business side, you're constantly applying these new skills and abilities and talents. Where is one that you're currently working on right now that's new to you that you're really kind of embracing and taking on?
One day I got gas in my boat. The guy that owned the marina was like, hey, you should buy this place. I'm like, why would I buy this place? Not that I'm loaded with money or nothing. He said, look at the P&Ls. And I went and I checked out like the P&Ls, and I was like, dang, this is pretty good. So I went ahead and bought it. And my wife said, don't you buy that. And my business partner that I was going out with was like, his wife was like, don't buy that. So we drank whiskey and we bought it. And, we've owned it now going on 6 years, and the ups and downs and stuff, but you still go in there and, you got to make sure, even with no arms, no legs, like, I still, one of the last guys there, I still step up to the plate and help out with everything. And it's a constant balance of like, hey, what are you doing and why you're not doing this? Like, not discrediting what they've done before, but like, get them moving. Like today I walked in and my general manager's eating a cookie, drinking coffee, and he's got work to be done that needs to get done. And I said, hey, all right, see ya. And he's like, well, I said, no, I don't think you get it. Go to work. I'm paying you. Go to work. And It's just that constant balance. And I think, I just think that's what you gotta, bring what you know, but also be compassionate and caring. And that's what I try to do. I try to understand from their side, but I also know what I want accomplished. And, they've learned real quick they can't tell me they can't do something. They can't be like, whoa, we couldn't do it because of this, or we can't figure it out. Because I'm like, no, that doesn't work in my world.
Right. Never give up. Never quit.
Yeah.
That's literally, like, that has taken you from where you were at a point back in 2012 to where you are now and where you will continue to go. Do you think it's that belief that has greatly improved your life, or is there another behavior or habit that has really kind of changed the game for you?
Not to put pressure on my daughter's shoulders, but my daughter and now my son, like, my kids are everything to me. And it's kind of weird because I don't put pressure on them, but I know that they're, like, my daughter when I was blown up was 6 months old, and she's my biggest driving factor of why I got better. At first I was like in the hospital bed feeling all like Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump, like, why didn't I just die? How is this going to be better? Like, what the heck? And then my daughter came in, and I was like, oh, well, I'm fortunate to be here. So I will do everything in my power to get better. And I realized early on, like, don't dwell on what happened. Just reminisce what you had and keep pushing forward. And, I'm in my truck right now. I drive with my prosthetic feet like everybody else, and I go and do what I want. I'm very independent in a world where prosthetics are possible and things like that. And I think my wife was a huge factor, not leaving my side and being there with me when I told her she should leave. But my parents were so awesome, and they did everything for for me and my sister and brother. And I was like, I'll never let my kids down. Like, it's just about getting it done for them. So, my daughter has high standards that she has to live up to, which I kind of feel a little bit bad for, because everywhere she goes, people know her. She's Travis Mills' daughter, and maybe that's kind of a heavy weight to carry on her shoulders. But at the same time, she knows, like, we're going to keep always pushing forward. And even though sometimes I might stumble or I might fall down, I'll get back up. And that's what I want my kids to see. And now my son, he's 4. He's a wild man. And, we just go about life. And I think, that was probably the biggest reason I started the foundation and I was able to get better so fast was my kids, right? Like, or my daughter, I guess. My son wasn't born yet, but they'll change the whole world, and I just can't let them see me fail. I'm like, no way.
Yeah. Believing in something bigger than yourself has really just literally allowed you to reinvent because you had to relearn everything, right? From the very like basic stuff to like you're doing things now that you probably wouldn't have done, before that time back in 2012.
No, I had my life plan. Everybody has their life planned out, right? Like I'm
Absolutely.
sure when you were a little kid, you're like, I'm going to be going through the majors course. Like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But for me, like I was like, yeah, I'm going to do 20 years in the military. After my third deployment, I'm going to go back, probably get picked up for airborne school, to jump master school. I was a jump master, so picked up to do jump master. And then I had a year and a half left to college because I was re-enlisted and taking college ops, and I was going to go officer because I was like, E7 looks like no fun. Like I'd rather be an officer. Like after staff sergeant, it just becomes babysitting and I don't want that. But life doesn't work out the way you plan it. And I think that's the craziest thing. So you always got to react to contact, right? You got to figure out, what's going on and how to react to it and how to push forward. And I've been fortunate. That's what I've been able to do.
Right. And then reacting to that contact, right, is recognizing that failure does occur and is needed to be able to succeed. Where has failure presented itself that has ultimately led to the greatest success in your life?
Oh, I've had sleepless nights at my foundation where I thought we were going to fail and everybody's money that donated was going to just evaporate into nothing. But we've really grit our teeth, bared down, and now we're one of the top 25 veteran service organizations in the nation at the Travis Mills Foundation. And, I have wonderful staff, amazing staff. They're like family to me. But there's been times where we're like, oh, geez, we might not make it. And that was, that's crazy to sit there and worry and like have that pressure. I've had days where when I was working out my first time, like I walked 3 laps. I was like so excited and ecstatic. I walked 3 laps around the Military Advanced Training Center. I was like, I did it, like this is awesome. And my dad missed it because he had to go to an appointment. And my dad came back the next day and was like, Dad, I'm gonna walk 5 laps. And my body just wouldn't do it. I walked half a lap. I spasm. I got Charlie horses real bad. My body like just wouldn't move. I could not take a step. And I was like in tears. Like I let my dad down. Like, Dad, I'm so sorry. Like I just want to walk. So he's like, no, you did great. And I'm like, no, this isn't right. But the next day I got better. And I tell people every day is not like maybe a step in the right direction, but at least it's a step forward. And, for me, like I don't want my kids to ever feel like they missed out on anything. Like that's my biggest fear is like they'll feel like they missed out. I was on the road at an event last week, and my son, I called him, and he's like, Dad, my heart's broken in a million pieces. So I had a dream, and I wanted you to have your arms and legs back, and you just can't have them, and it's not fair, and I cried, and my heart broke, and I'm like, oh, buddy, sorry, they're not coming, it's like, you can't explain to him, like, well, man, I want them back too, but it's just not, how it works, and it kind of gets bad and sad, but it is what it is.
And at every point in that failure, though, you've been able to rally and compose yourself enough, like you said, especially when you were excited for your dad to come see you walk, pushing for that 5 laps. Now you're able to run, do all this stuff, and it just takes time. And being able to recognize and have that self-awareness of it's that step forward each day makes a whole lot of makes a big difference in the long term.
Well, and I tried so hard, I just couldn't wait to get out of the hospital. I was like, I got to get off Walter Reed. I got to go home. I got to retire. I got to get out of my life. And I got out of Walter Reed, and I went to my in-laws' house, and I sat there, and I looked at an old picture of me on the wall the first day I got there, and I was like, now what? Like, now what's my life going to be? Like, what am I supposed to do now? And I broke down. I was like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go from here. Because in the Army, I was somebody. I was Staff Sergeant Travis Mills, leader of combat soldiers with the 82nd Airborne Division, the greatest division ever known to mankind. And then at the hospital, I was, Travis Mills, but I helped all the soldiers because I was one of the older guys at 25 that got injured. And I was like making sure they were working out and checking in on them. But, I was somebody at Walter Reed. I was the mayor of Building 62. So at Walter Reed, I was somebody, right? They called me the mayor of Building 62. I'd go meet all the people in their hospital rooms and say hi, and I'd catch up on how their life's going. And then I got out of the hospital and I went home. Is everything I strive for. 19 months. I worked so hard to get home. And then I got home. And I said, who am I now? I'm not I'm not that guy in the picture on the wall I'm staring at. I broke down. And I had to rebuild my whole entire life, basically. Like, not that my wife was, like, mad or leaving me. Not that my daughter didn't love me. But I had to rebuild and reestablish who I was as a person. And, you know, there would be nights, and not many. Like, I don't have PTSD or never been classified as PTSD. Not that I think there's anything wrong with it. We have a great program now for anybody suffering post-traumatic stress. It's free to them. Visit TravisMillsFoundation.org. But I would, at nights in the dark, when it's real quiet, I would sit there and go, like, this is the rest of my life. Like, what? Why? Why do I have to lose my arms and legs? Like, why is this the rest of my life? Like, what could ever make this be my outcome? And then it wasn't until really a year ago, and we're talking like this April makes 10 years, so like at year 8, I went to a camp down in Texas with my buddy David, who has Adapt Training Foundation, who I'm great friends with, and we helped start it and whatnot. And I was at a like barbecue, and they're doing the kumbaya stuff, and I'm like, I'm just here to work out. Straight up, I don't care about this stuff. I don't talk feelings. I'm not emotional. But this one guy that got thrown out of a car and broke his back, and he was in a wheelchair the rest of his life. He's like, if I don't keep moving, I just sit there and I'll cry. And he goes, so I got to keep moving. And the counselor was like, well, no, like you got to sit with that. And I was like, I piped up from the back, right? I'm just sitting eating a hot dog or whatever and drinking a beer. And I was like, no, you don't. And the guy's like, well, yeah, he does. He has to sit there and he has to go through it. I'm like, no, he doesn't, because you never get like, there's no reason to sit with it. He's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, the thing that makes him do that is he's asking why this happened. Why is this his life? And why is he in a wheelchair? And I said, and the truth is he's never going to get the answer. There will never be an answer that suffices. But I sat there and I goes, that's exactly what it is. I haven't accepted that it happened. Like, I mean, as much as I could have, I did. But I was like, I have to accept this is what happened. Point blank. There's no questions that are going to be answered to the reason why. So stop asking why. Accept that it happened. Know it did, and push forward in life. And, you know, I don't have those nights where I sit there in my bed anymore and I think about, like, why this happened. Because at the end of the day, not one answer I ever get is going to make me feel good about it. Like, oh, that makes sense. Like, right, this is why I lost my arms and legs. Okay, cool, let's move on. And that's just not going to happen. So I'm like, okay, I can accept that it happened without knowing the reason why it happened and be okay with that.
Yeah. No, that's extremely powerful. And again, it's one of those things, someone could have told you that, you know, after 19 months, after a year and a half, after 5 years, but it was that moment in time where it just kind of clicked. And that's
and I mean,
amazing.
I came around to myself and I was like, yep, that's why. And I didn't realize it before. Like, I'd have 1 or 2 nights a month where I'm sitting there in the dark and it's quiet. And I'm like, I got to go watch TV. Like, I'm done with this. Because it's like, this is the rest of your life. Like, why this happened? Like, this is miserable. Even though I have all the technology and the advancements and the taxpayers, you know, dollars that luckily I'm fortunate to use to have prosthetic legs and take care of stuff. It took me like 8 years to like really sit with it, even though I didn't want to have any counseling because I don't like that stuff. And no, I know it helps, and I encourage everybody to do it if they need it.
So then I ask you, as we kind of wrap up our conversation here, how today, Travis Mills, are you better than yesterday?
Well, I didn't eat as much today as I did yesterday, and I'm trying to lose weight. You know, I figured on Monday you got to do that, so I'm doing a little better. And since I was out to dinner like an idiot, because my business manager screwed up, not that it's your fault, because you're important. That's why I came outside. I was like, I'm not missing this phone call for dinner, because dinner can wait. I haven't eaten dinner, and I probably won't now. I'm like, no, I got to lose weight. But how am I better than today than yesterday? Today I was supposed to be in Boston at a meeting, and it got canceled. And then I got to do my meetings I was supposed to do tomorrow today in my foundation office. And I got a chance to sit down with my leadership team, find out what's all going on, and we really hashed out some really awesome stuff. So I'm excited going to bed tonight. I'm excited and thankful for my foundation and all the organization, you know, people that work for us and the work they're doing. And, you know, every day I strive to be a little bit better. Every chance I get to teach my children a life lesson that's meaningful and impactful, I do. And I'm so grateful to have been given the opportunity to still be alive, you know? And I think people always wonder, like, man, like, how's he do it? And a lot of times I'll have conversations with real awkward people. And the first thing is like, well, geez, if that happened to me, I'd probably shoot myself. And I'm like, oh, well, that's nice. Thanks for the comment. No, not like you should. Like, you're really good at doing this, whatever, you know? And I'm like, oh, Thanks, bud. And, that's like really weird when people say that to me, but I'm like, I'm so fortunate and thankful to have the ability to still be here. And I realize the lives that were lost. And every day I try to live in honor of my good friends that I lost, as well as ones I don't know, right? But I'm like,
Right.
They didn't get the chance to still be here, right? I'm sure you have soldiers that that didn't make it back. And
Absolutely.
they didn't have the chance to watch their daughter grow and learn how to walk with her, or to be married going on 14 years and to have another child. And, always to mind comes Francis Jean Phillips I, my buddy Frankie. His wife would give anything for my situation, but that's not going to happen. His daughter Sophia for daddy-daughter dance. And his mom, she tells me one more conversation would be everything. But they don't get that. And that's why I'm able to put a smile on and go forward, because I'm so thankful to the people that worked on me and the ability to still be around, that I won't let anybody down. And I'll always, always push forward, because I was given the opportunity to still live.
No, and it's about taking that step forward, like you said, right? What that step forward could be a centimeter, it could be a full mile, whatever that step forward looks like every day. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. So, Travis, where can people reach out to you if they want to learn more about your story?
Well, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to promote travismills.org for all your Travis Mills needs. TravisMillsFoundation.org is my website. It links right from my other website. And then on social media, my Instagram and Facebook is at SSG Travis Mills. So at Staff Sergeant Travis Mills, SSG. And, if people want to find out a whole heck of a lot and you think my voice is just that amazing, you want me to read you bedtime stories, I have a book out. It's called Tough as They Come. I was fortunate to make New York Times bestsellers list. And the book will tell the story a lot more in depth, and people really enjoy it. But the most important part to me is actually the author's note. It'll tell you two things, right? Number one, my problems don't outweigh anybody else's. And it might sound silly. I'm sitting here with no arms, no legs, and people are like, what are you talking about? You have no arms and legs. But collectively, listeners probably can come up with somebody going through cancer, financial troubles, a car accident, something that happened in their life. And I don't think I should be put on any pedestal. I think if my story can help them, by all means, please check me out. I do a lot of fun videos and whatnot with my family and stuff on the old social media. And then on top of that, the next thing it's going to tell you is I didn't serve any more than anybody else. So if you did serve, Air Force, Coast Guard, Navy, Marines, Army, thank you for your service, and I appreciate you. So that's the best way. Those are the links, and I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely, and that's SSG Travis Mills, like you said, Instagram, across the board. Also, you forgot to mention the 2014 documentary, Travis, A Soldier Story, and it was a 2016 New York Times bestseller. But everyone knows that, right? That's just common knowledge at this point.
It was on Netflix, now it's off, and we're trying to renegotiate, so I didn't want to send them on a wild goose chase. But it's on iTunes, I think. The Travis Soldier Story documentary. GI Film Festival Award winner, no big deal, whatever. Just my good face, like going through a blow up and everything like that. But yeah, so that's where you find me, and I appreciate it.
I love it. Travis, thank you so much for your time, sharing your story with us, and of course, thanks for having our six. Really appreciate it, bro.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And remember, don't step on bombs. Because, I did. And I was like, shit, shouldn't have done that. So that's the best piece of advice I got for you, winners. But thanks a lot. Have a great night. Take care.
I don't know what you've been told, Sixers, but the lawyers would like us to remind you that the views, opinions, and comments expressed on the Got Your Six podcast are solely those of the hosts or guests, to include current and previous Department of Defense employees, and should in no way be considered the opinions of or endorsements on behalf of the Department of Defense or any of its components, divisions, contractors, or other current and previous staff members.